Hello, girls, and welcome to the subject of production and operations management. Since last two lectures, we have been dealing with the topic of facility layout, and we have seen almost many topics related to facility layout in the previous lectures. Which were they? That we'll go through. If you just check it out with the contents, it includes introduction, meaning, definitions, need for layout decisions. We have already checked out in the first lecture, and in the second lecture that we did yesterday, we have already seen scope, objectives of ideal plant layout, importance of facility layout. These three topics we have checked in the last lecture. In today's lecture, we'll be seeing more of the topics. If you see the next slide here, we'll be dealing as many as 16 topics in this session, or that means in this particular chapter or unit. Now, if we just try to refresh it, we'll come to know that in the previous lecture, we have seen the scope, objectives and importance of the plant layout. Now, if by chance you are just viewing this video lecture and you have no idea that what is plant layout, then let us just revise the meaning one more time, so that whatever we are going to do today, we can find out the relativity very easily. Now let us try to revise the meaning, as I told, which is almost clear to you. Almost all of you must be knowing about it. Let us see it one more time. That is plant layout, which means the arrangement of machines, equipments and other facilities in such a way that leads to smooth, fastest and cost-effective manufacturing of the goods. Now we'll be seeing the different aspects. Just let me elaborate this thing. What is plant layout? Plant layout is the third important decision, very important decision on the part of managers or maybe the owner. What is the first decision? In the first decision, he decides that what he wants to produce or what he wants to operate. That means whether he wants to go for the tangible product or he wants to take up with the intangible services. That's the first and the foremost decision that he takes up. Next important decision, once he has decided that he wants to go for manufacturing of goods, suppose, then the immediate decision that he needs to take is to think about the location. That means where to locate, where to have my manufacturing unit to be taken, where I should take my unit to. That is important decision number 2. Once he decides this, the third important area that comes up is said to be the plant layout. That means it decides that how the manufacturing he wants to take up or how he wants to carry out with the manufacturing. It tells us about the designing or internal arrangement of the factory or plant, which includes the arrangement of machineries. It includes the arrangement of equipments, or at times it even includes the arrangement of facilities. That means whatever we are utilizing as a manufacturer, what it takes, whatever it takes. I have repeated it yesterday also, in this lecture also I am repeating it, that facilities may be any facility containing, say, it may be the parking area, it may be the canteen facility, it may be the restrooms, it may be the production unit itself, it may be the administrative office, whatsoever we are using, it may be the storage place, it may be any facility that we may be using for the purpose of production, where it should be located, where the arrangement should be done for the same facilities. Everything, when you decide, we say that we are doing the plant layout, or we say that manufacturer has decided on plant layout, and that is what is the the extract of what we have done in the prior two lectures, right? Today we will see some other aspects of the plant layout. Which are they? Let us see. Here, if you see, we are dealing with the 8th point, that is what's layout planning. That means before deciding that what should be my layout or how it should be, you have to plan it. See, whenever a word plan comes, means it is the initiating step. That means it is the first and the foremost step of the management. We have checked it out earlier in the earlier years when we were learning say the fundamentals of management, which tells us that if you want to take up with management, means you have to start with planning, organizing, staffing, etc. In the same way, when you want to decide that what should be the arrangement or how should be the arrangement, then it is always that we take up with layout planning, right? What it is all about, let us see it. Designing and installing a layout for the first time and its following revision may be looked after by the engineering or planning department. That means if we are initiating, we are starting with some kind of manufacturing, then at the very prior stage we need to decide that what sort of first time layout should be there, or it may be a revision, right? These things are taken up generally by the engineers or maybe a proper planning department. Whosoever designs and installs the layout, there is no ready-made method for preparing it. It is the process involving art and science. See, this is very important point, students, because you don't have a typical layout for a typical kind of work. Say suppose if it is an engineering industry, the layout has to be like this. If it is a garment industry, it has to be like this. If it is say hotel industry, it has to be like this. No, some specific pattern or the rigid pattern of layout is not there. Yes, in the types of pattern ahead in the lectures or maybe in the coming lectures, we may find out, we will deal with different types of layout. But here when we are trying to say, we mean that there is no particular thing that we automatically can use it, કે આ વસ્તુનું મેન્યુફેક્ચરિંગ કરવું છે તો એવું જ લેઆઉટ, આ જ લેઆઉટ એમાં કામ લાગશે. કે સે બી થિંગ ઇઝ ટુ બી પ્રોડ્યુસ, દેન આ ઉપાડીને આ લેઆઉટ મૂકી દીધું. સમથિંગ લાઈક દેટ કેન નોટ બી વર્કડ આઉટ. સો વોટ યુ હેવ ટુ ડુ, યુ હેવ ટુ ઇન્વોલ્વ getting the layout decision with proper say artistic sense also, and it has to be scientific also. That means you need to have a little bit of insight into having a kind of plant layout. The final layout may be after many trial and error and many compromises. To make the final layout, the perfect layout personnel would take up with step by step in the process. Very important is this. You can't randomly decide that what will be the layout. Suppose for the production goes into 5 different stages, 1 2 3 4 5, and then you arrange the machines in such a way that 5th machine comes up first, then comes up the 3rd machine, then comes up the 2nd machine. Something like this cannot be done. So it may take many a times, it may take trial and error of adjusting or making the arrangement, and then ultimately we have to come up to a perfect layout with the personal or maybe the teamwork. It may be a teamwork, and then after making so many errors and after rectifying those errors, we can come to a particular pattern. But a step by step process is to be decided as when we are doing the layout planning. Thus, layout planning involves decision about the physical arrangement of economic activity centers within a facility location or facility. That means activity centers are to be decided. An economic activity center can be anything that consumes space, person or group of people, a workstation, a department, an easel, maybe a storeroom, and so on. That means this can be considered to be the economic activity, because these are all such places wherein some or the other kind of function is being carried out for the purpose of earning or for some purpose of production. Then at that time, where you want to locate this, that when you decide, that becomes the layout planning, or that particular activity is said to be layout planning. Here for example, so many activity center has been given. That means economic activity center has been given. It can be anything which consumes space. કોઈ પણ એક્ટિવિટી જેને કોઈ એક જગ્યા જોઈએ છે, પર્ટિક્યુલર સ્પેસ જોઈએ છે પરફોર્મ કરવા માટે, મે બી એક પર્સનથી થાય છે ઓર ગ્રુપ ઓફ પીપલથી થાય છે. ઇટ મે બી અ વર્ક સ્ટેશન. દેટ મીન્સ ફ્યુ ઓફ ધી અરેન્જમેન્ટ ઓફ ધી equipment and machineries is there, or it may be a different department, એક આખું જુદું ખાતું જ ચાલતું હોય એવું પણ બને, or an easel, that means a passage is there, or it may be a storeroom. It can be anything out of this can be considered as the economic activity center. Now where you want to locate it or how you want to design this, all things within the facility, or that means within the plant or factory, that is what is known as layout planning. The ultimate goal of layout planning is to allow workers and equipments to operate more effectively. The heart of understanding the layout planning is why a manufacturer needs to do the layout planning, because ultimately he wants to make the workers comfortable, he wants to have the equipments to be used in the best possible manner, and each operation, that means it may contain manpower as well as the equipment, there has to be a proper coordination, there has to be a proper operation, and it should be very effectively done. Because see, on the basis or on this operation or on this production, the whole economic activity of selling and earning profit is dependent. So it is very important that layout planning should be done very properly and very methodically, right? Here in this slide we'll see different stages, that how these layout planning can be worked out, or when you are planning layout, what are the steps that we need to start. They are very simple steps, they are very logical in nature. One by one, if you check it out, you'll come to know that they are very easy to understand, right? Here, number one, the procedure starts with an analysis of the product to be manufactured and the expected volume of its production. That means you have to decide that what product I want to produce, or what amount I want to produce, what is the expected volume and what is the production. That you have to decide at the first stage. Here in detail it has been given. It includes the study of the parts to be made and bought, stages of production, assembling. The volume is estimated in the terms of market. That means, first of all, suppose we continue with an example. First of all, if I want to produce, if I am a manufacturer, I want to produce a product A. Now, to produce this product A, I may need so many say subparts or sub assemblies. I may need different spare parts. Now, whether I am going to go for buying this product from outside, that means whether I'm going to go for the outsourcing of these spare parts, or whether my unit I'm going to have an in-house production, that I have to decide, because on the basis of that I have to make the arrangement of equipments and my necessities, right? So that is what, whether we are going for buying a product or we are going to manufacture it within what will be the stages of production. Say, as I told you before also, that there may be 5 stages of production from machine 1 2 3 4 5. Whether we are going for assembling means taking different parts and then getting it together in a particular product, then that is said to be assembling. What type of production that I am going to do and how much I am going to produce at the end of the day, maybe at the end of the week, maybe at the end of the month, depending upon the market demand. When I decide this, only then I can work out with my facility. That means facility layout, right? So the first stage is to analyze, to study. What are we going to study here? We are going to study what type of product we are going to make, what will be the production process, and what will be the expected volume. The next important stage that comes up is number 2, that is most appropriate process must be decided. See, supposingly we continue with the same example. If I am producing a product, then a product can be produced with many different methods. It may be with the X method also I can produce, say suppose with the Y method also I can produce, with the Z method also I can produce. So now it is all up to me to decide that what is the most suitable product or production method for me, and that is what is said to be deciding the appropriate process, right, with a view to changes in the volume or equipment. So that ultimately, if any changes are required, say if I need to make more number of products depending upon the higher demand, or less number of product depending upon the fall in demand, then I should make the adjustment easily, or I can make the adjustment easily. That is what is deciding on appropriate process. So number 1, it is analysis. Number 2, deciding most appropriate process. The third one, that is the process then helps to decide the type of equipments requirement of a company. Naturally, if I am trying to say out of XYZ process, I am selecting X process, then for X process to produce a product, I may require 5 machines or 5 equipments. Then third point is to decide that how many equipments or machines will I require. Only then I'll be able to make its arrangement done later. Next, these helps to decide the number of workers required. Suppose 5 machines I am using. At each machine I may require at least 2 workers. That means one machine, 2 workers. If I have 5 machines, that means 5 machines plus 10 workers. These will be my requirement, and these many things I have to adjust in my space available. And when I do that, that means I am doing my layout. That means that becomes the fourth stage when I decide the number of workers required. Now here in detail the point has been explained. The trend nowadays is to replace labor by machines, because that results into the increased production, reduced cost, better quality and less labor problems. However, labor cannot be completely avoided. See, suppose howsoever my method may be automatic, or howsoever automated methods I may be using, that means automatic production I may be using, I'll require least amount of members or workers in it. Without workers or without labor, things are not possible. Yes, if you manually count it, or if something is being manufactured manually, definitely we need more number of people there. But when there is a combination between the machines and the people, then at that time what I'll try to do is, being a manufacturer, I'll try to use more number of equipments or machines as against the number of people. But altogether I cannot avoid that. Okay, I'll not have any labor, I don't need any person in my factory, I'll have everything done by its own. Then that's not possible. That means a combination is to be decided, that what number of workers will I require. And the third or the fifth stage that comes up is the arrangement of all these facilities and personnel constitutes the plant layout. That means wherever these facilities, now I know that these many workers, these many equipments, this is how the production is going to take place, this is how I need to arrange. So at the last point, that means at the fifth stage, I'll be very easily able to decide that what sort of arrangement should be done of all these facilities and personnel here means staff, within the space that I have, so that I am using the space at its best. That means optimum utilization of space is there. Moreover, I am taking up with the fastest manufacturing process, and on the contrary, I am trying to see that it is smooth also and it is cost effective also. If I want to do this, I have to take up with layout planning, and layout planning includes this 5 stages of its process. I hope I am making it clear, right? Let us go ahead. Now here we are going to check out with one more point, that is said to be factors influencing plant layout. See, there may be so many factors. If I'm let me take up the same example. Suppose if I'm deciding that I'm producing a product. If I'm producing a product with X process, with 5 machines and 5 labor, that means so many things I have to consider. There are so many factors, there are so many determinants that I need to check out. I have to consider them, I have to make the best use of them, and then I have to see, I have to analyze it beforehand. After using them I cannot do it. But these factors, આ બધા પરિબળને પહેલા મારે સ્ટડી કરવા પડે, એનાલાઇઝ કરવું પડે કે આ બધા જ, it may be material, it may be product, it may be number of workers, it may be type of machines, right? It may be the managerial policies. કઈ બધી જ વસ્તુઓ ક્યાંક લેઆઉટને એક યા બીજી રીતે અફેક્ટ કરે છે. So all these factors I have to see it as a whole, and then I'll be able to select my type of method or maybe type of layout that I can use. As I told you earlier also, કે કોઈ એક સ્પેસિફિક વસ્તુ બનાવવા માટે કોઈ એક બીબા ઢાળ, કોઈ ડિઝાઇનિંગ નથી, કોઈ અરેન્જમેન્ટ નથી. So every time the manufacturer or the different manufacturer has to see from his own perspective, he has to analyze the situation in his own perspective. It may be the product, the material, the machines, the say material handling that he does, maybe the labor that he may be using. There are so many factors that he needs to consider, and as a whole when you are considering all these set of factors together, and then you'll be able to finalize that, okay, after having or after connection with these many kind of factors, I am at a conclusion that this type of layout is best for my unit. And before doing that, what we have to do is we have to check out with all the list of factors that influences the selection of plant layout. Let us see it. As mentioned above, there cannot be a standardized design which may be suggested for the different manufacturing or service units. There are a number of factors responsible while the selection of facility layout is done. The pattern of layout varies from industry to industry, location to location, and plant to plant. The selection of particular type to suit the requirement of a plant depends on a number of factors. Some of the major factors that significantly influences the facility layout are mentioned below. As I told you earlier also, that there cannot be a single layout. Say suppose ice cream manufacturing factory is using a particular type of layout. The same layout may be used by engineering product factory, or the same layout may be used by automobile manufacturers. This cannot be there. That is why a single pattern is not there. So from manufacturer to manufacturer it differs, from industry to industry it differs. Why it differs? Because there are so many factors influencing these layout, and that is why we have to consider all these factors, and accordingly we make the decisions on plant layout. Let us see these factors one by one. Say suppose the first and the foremost that comes up in the list is said to be materials. Now what is this materials? It is said that materials influence plant layout. It is meant that there is a need to provide for the storage and movement of raw materials in a plant until they are converted into the finished goods. Naturally, if you remember the first chart of this syllabus, that was converting, that means raw material, process and output, right? That means if you want to have some kind of output, definitely you should have the materials there. Raw materials are what? They are the basic ingredient of any production, because they need a kind of storage. They need a kind of path to pass it on from the raw stage to the final stage, and that is why they have to be treated, they are to be considered and understood properly. The storage and movement of raw materials require properly placed storage rooms and material movement or maybe handling equipments. As I told you before also, that material is the basic ingredient. Before you change it into the complete product, you have to undergo storing it properly, safely, right? Hazard free, you have to store it, and then you have to bring it to the process. That means it is lying somewhere in storehouse, you have to bring it to process number 1, then you carry out to number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and at the end of the 5th stage, you are converting actual materials into the actual finished goods. That means before transferring it into the finished goods, what material we are using, whether it is it is heavy, whether it is light, whether it is inflammable, whether it is flammable, whatever the type may be, these materials are to be kept in mind, and then the layout decision related to its storage and handling should be done. This involves initial investment and recurring cost. The usual way of taking the raw material factor into account is to draw a flow chart to visualize the path of the material's flow or movement, and then to eliminate cross cars, maybe long distances and backtracking. The best path is thus determined around which the layout is being planned out. That means, just I told you a couple of minutes back that if you want to take the materials from the storeroom, you may need a kind of equipment, right? Once it is there in the production house, then what you have to do here, you have to pass it on from one machine to the another, to the next, to the next. And what we try to do within this passing of the material, we try to see that minimum material handling is there, minimum distance is to be traveled. There is no long distance that is to be traveled by the materials, because it will make the process lengthy, right? and none of the manufacturer wants that the process of production should be lengthy. But તમે એક machine જે છે, એક stage છે, એ તમે I gave you the example in the last session કે તમે એક ક્લાસ તમે રૂમ નંબર 3માં અટેન્ડ કરો છો. For the another lecture you go to upstairs room number 10 and then you change it to conference room, and likewise if you keep on changing, or if it takes time in shifting, what happens because of that? The process of the learning or the process of lecture becomes time consuming. So in the same way, if you make the material travel a lot, if it is at a long distance, if you keep on crisscrossing it, that means એક બાજુથી બીજી બાજુથી પેલી બાજુ એમ તમે એને ફેરવ કરો, તો what happens is it is a very time consuming process. યા તો તમે પહેલા આગળ એને ફોરવર્ડ કરો છો, પછી પાછું બેક ટ્રેકિંગ કરાવો છો, એટલે થર્ડ સ્ટેજ પર પહોંચી ગયું, પછી પાછું એને ફર્સ્ટ સ્ટેજ ઉપર આવવું પડે છે. આવું કાંઈ થતું હોય તો that is really to be taken care of, and that is why material becomes the first important factor, right? So best path is to be chosen, and then the machines are to be arranged. Next comes up is product. Once the material is clear, number 2, product. What is product? A layout designed with the ultimate purpose of producing a product. The type of product, that is whether a product is heavy or light, big or small, liquid or solid, and its position in the relation to the plant location influence the layout. That means what type of product are we going to produce, whether it is heavy, whether it is light, whether it is consuming too much of space, that is it is bigger in volume, or it may be liquid, it may be semi-solid, it may be in any kind of form, right? Then ultimately we should know that where to store it, where we can put it until we are bringing it out for the market, or how we are going to produce and we are going to keep it safe. Everything is calculated, and that is why what product we are to produce, that makes a lot of difference. Like locomotives and shipbuilding, the product is stationary and thus man and machinery are moved to the product. See, in the further part of the unit we will check out with the different types of layout. In that we will see static layout or stationary layout, જેની અંદર product as it is રહે છે, એમાં કોઈ ફેર નથી પડતો, પણ જે facilities છે that keep on moving around the product. See here the best example to understand that is shipbuilding. કોઈ shipbuilding થતું હોય તો ક્યારે જોયું તમે shipbuilding કોઈ મેન્યુફેક્ચરિંગ યુનિટમાં થાય ને પછી ત્યાંથી આખી શિપ ઉપાડીને તમે ઓશન પર અથવા તો તમે બીચ ઉપર લઈ આવો છો અને then you place it in the ocean for sailing. Something like that is not done. Shipbuilding yard હંમેશા on the seashore જ હોય, so that ultimately whatever facilities you require, they keep on turning, they keep on changing around the product. That means the product do not change. તો તમારું product કઈ પ્રકારનું છે એના આધારે પણ તમારું layout decide થાય છે. If the product is stationary એટલે હલતું ન હોય એવું, એક જ જગ્યાએ static છે, it does not keep on changing. તો એમાં શિપ બિલ્ડિંગમાં અને પેન મેકિંગમાં there is a large difference, because pen making from one place to the another you can carry the product, right? semi finished product ને તમે એક જગ્યાએથી એક પ્રોસેસમાંથી બીજી પ્રોસેસમાં આરામથી લઈ જઈ શકો છો, જ્યારે કોઈ સ્ટેટિક પ્રોડક્ટને you cannot take it. That is why product plays important role. Even the size of the product should be considered while planning the layout of the plant. Thus, the layout of the plant very much differs with the type of products being produced. For this, the experts are required for the opinion that plant layout should begin with the product. As soon as I decide that what I want to produce, the immediate question comes up that how the product is going to affect my plant layout. મારે આ પ્રોડ્યુસ કરવું છે તો એના માટે મારે કઈ પ્રકારનું અરેન્જમેન્ટ લાવવું પડશે, that should be my second factor to be considered, right? If we go to the third one, it is the worker. Worker means labor. What type of manpower do you require? The layout designer should also consider the type, position and requirement of employees. That means what type of employees do you require, whether you require the skilled labor, whether you require the unskilled labor, right? What type of labor you require, what should be their position, whether they are on the left, whether they are on the right of the machine, and what are their requirements to produce the product. That means what type of workers that we are using, that plays an important role. The position of employees, that is whether they are stationary or moving, as this also influence the plant layout. That means if you want the worker to be moving from one machine to the another, then you have to provide them with the different or enough spaces to be provided, so that ultimately they have the passage, they have that area to walk about, right? And they can make the production easy and comfortable for them also. So employees facilities such as health and related services, food facilities and related services, sanitary services influences the layout significantly. Employee safety must also receive the due consideration. Suppose at times heavy machines with the blades are being used, say with the spikes the machines are being used, then at that time if the employees are not given enough space in the layout, that means if you are not arranging them properly, or if you are not providing enough space to them, then what happens is what they'll not have the place to move around, and it may be hazardous for their health, their safety may be at the stake. So even the employee safety should be considered. So up till now what we have seen, three factors affecting, that is machines we have seen the product, and we have also checked out with the worker. Here we are moving with the fourth one, that is machinery. Of course, the machinery that we are going to use, at times we may be using a very heavy machinery, at times we may be using the light machinery, then accordingly we need to make the arrangement for the same. The type of product, the volume of its production, the type of process, and the management policy determines the size and type of the machinery to be installed, which in turn influences the plant layout. Production is the combination and manipulation of man, materials, and machines. The layout highly depends upon the type of machines used for manufacturing purposes. At times, the unit may be very economically sound. Then it may have the automated plant. That means only a person is required to switch it on and switch it off. You switch on the plant, everything goes by its own. You don't need any person there, right? Or it may be semi-automated. That means semi-automated means you may require a few portion of the machines, and the other it may be a combination of men also, or it may be a manual work, you may require very less number of machines, then at that time the layout differs like that. That is why machine plays important role while deciding the layout. Fifth comes up is types of industry. See, types of industry, I think you have studied earlier also. Types of industry includes what? That what type of industry are you in what category are you in the following slides we'll be seeing 4 types, and we need to understand each type, because each type, in what category do you fall, your layout would be different. If it is a synthetic industry, your layout would be different. If it is analytical industry, your layout would be different. If it is just assembly line, your layout is different. That means what type of industry are you in, then accordingly there may be changes in the layout, and that is why it is the fifth important factor affecting the plant layout. The type of industry and the method of manufacturing process exercise a significant influence on plant layout. Industries may be classified in the following types. See, we will be seeing different types of industry. Suppose number 1 here, it is synthetic. Now what is this synthetic industry? See, it has nothing to do with the texture of some kind of cloth, right? A synthetic cloth છે તો એની સાથે it has got nothing to do. Synthetic industry is totally different. Now what is the meaning of synthetic industry? A synthetic industry is also called assembling industry. They are all those products in which several components are assembled to get the final products, like chemical industry, paper, watchmaking, light and heavy engineering, etc. Once the type of industry is decided, then the machines used and the layout can be decided. That means synthetic industry is such a kind of industry wherein we are bringing up with all the type of subcomponents, we are getting it together, we are trying to have an assembly of it, and assembly means we are trying to join it, we are trying to bring it together, and then what we have at the end may be considered to be the synthetic industry. Or the examples are ample here. Chemical industry is a part of that. Paper industry can be considered, because here one single thing is not being processed. કેટલા બધા સબ કમ્પોનન્ટ્સને તમે લઈ આવી અને પછી તમે એક પર્ટિક્યુલર પ્રોડક્ટનું પ્રોડક્શન કરતા હો, તો ઇટ મે બી ઓલ્સો નોન એઝ એસેમ્બલી લાઇન એટ ટાઈમ્સ, and it is synthetic industry on the other hand. The number 2 it tells us about the analytical industry. That means it's altogether a different type. Now what happens here? It converts the raw materials into various elements or constituent product. For example, an oil refinery. Now these gives naphtha, gasoline, paraffin, tar and kerosene at a time, right? As well as it is sugar industry that gives the bagasse, the molasses besides the sugar. That means out of one product there may be so many byproduct, constituent elements પણ બહાર આવતા હોય. તો આવી ઇન્ડસ્ટ્રી હોય એને એનાલિટિકલ ઇન્ડસ્ટ્રી કહેવાય. તો તમારું પ્રોડક્ટ સપોઝ આપણે એક જ એક્ઝામ્પલ કેરી કરીએ છીએ, એ જ એક્ઝામ્પલને કન્ટિન્યુ કરીએ કે એ પ્રોડક્ટ મારું સપોઝ ઇફ ઇટ ઇઝ ઇટ કમ્સ ઇન ધીસ કેટેગરી એનાલિટિકલ ઇન્ડસ્ટ્રી, દેટ મીન્સ બિસાઇડ્સ એ પ્રોડક્ટ હું કદાચ PQR પ્રોડક્ટ પણ એમાંથી બનાવતી હોઉં, તો મારું લેઆઉટ અથવા તો મારું ઇન્ટરનલ અરેન્જમેન્ટ, એના મશીનરી, એનું મટીરિયલ એ પ્રમાણે મને જોશે, and accordingly I'll have to make the arrangement for the same. The third one comes up is said to be conditioning. Now what is this conditioning? It involves a change in the form of physical properties like metal working and leather tanning concerns the condition their raw materials to have the end product. Here what we are doing is physically we are changing its shape, its size, its color, right? Say suppose metal working હોય, કોઈક તમે મેટલની શીટ લઈ આવો છો, એમાંથી તમે કેટલી બધી વસ્તુ બનાવો છો, તો what are you ultimately doing is you are checking or you are changing the physical properties of the product from its original. That means it is known as conditioning industry. And fourth is extractive. Now what is this extractive? It involves the separation of one element from the another, as in the case of metal from ore, right? Say suppose iron ore હોય, તો iron ore માંથી આપણે ironને અલગ પાડીએ છીએ એના ore માંથી, તો that is extractive. Thus the layout designer should keep in mind the type of industry and the method of manufacturing process while planning a layout. That is why આ ચારેય વસ્તુને ધ્યાનમાં રાખવી પડે. It may be like we have to decide that what type of industry are we in. Are we in a synthetic industry? Are we analytical industry? Or are we conditioning industry or extractive? કારણ કે આ બધાનો નેચર જુદો છે, બનાવવાનો પ્રકાર જુદો છે, પ્રોસેસ જુદો હોય, એના મશીનરીઝ જુદા વપરાતા હોય, તો એકોર્ડિંગલી એનું લેઆઉટ પણ બદલતું રહેશે. સો દેટ ઇઝ વાય ટાઈપ ઓફ ઇન્ડસ્ટ્રી કેન બી કન્સિડર્ડ એઝ fifth important factor. The sixth one comes up is location. Now how these affects? The site selected for the location of a plant influences its layout in one or the other way. Firstly, the terrain. હવે કોઈ પણ લોકેશન, કોઈ પણ સાઇટ આપણે નક્કી કરીએ એના આધારે ઘણું બધું એનું લેઆઉટ ડિસાઇડ થતું હોય છે. કેવી રીતે? લેટ અસ સી ઇટ. Number one, firstly, the terrain of the site determines the type of building which in turn influences the layout. Supposingly, terrain means land. જે આપણે લેન્ડનો ટુકડો લઈએ છીએ એના એ કેવો છે, whether it is horizontal means it is wide in nature, અથવા તો wide આપણને land available છે, તો આપણે આખું એસ્ટાબ્લિશમેન્ટ કેવું કરશું, ફેક્ટરીનું સે લેઆઉટ અથવા એનું ડિઝાઇનિંગ અથવા એનું અરેન્જમેન્ટ કેવું કરશું, તો કે વાઇડ કરશું, હોરિઝોન્ટલ કરશું. Supposingly, if you are having a small plot, then at that time you want to have so many or the product demands for lot many type of arrangement. So at that time we may have multi-storied building done, and at each story we may have each function produced, or maybe each function performing. Then at that time what type of terrain means land કઈ પ્રકારની આપણી પાસે છે, એ લોકેશન કઈ પ્રકારની છે, એના આધારે પણ આપણું લેઆઉટ નક્કી થાય છે. Number two, secondly, the location of plant determines the mode of transportation depending upon the distances from the source of materials and the market to a few cases. That means if the location is far off, then we may see that ભલે આપણું land નાનું હોય, then we may take it there, then layout would be like that, right? So it depends that what will be the mode of transportation available, say what type, where the sources of raw material is, all these affects the layout. The third one is the plant location may be determined in the part by fuel requirement of the concern. The plant layout must provide the storage of this. That means if you require the fuel, if you require a storage place for it, then the plant location does it provide that or not? If it provides, then layout would be like that. If it doesn't provide, the layout would be the other way around. That means in short, the location affects the plant layout. Fourth and the last one, the demand for the future expansion influences the plant layout. I gave you the example in the previous lecture that when we are deciding say if the house is 2 BHK house, right, there, but the number of members increases of the family, then what father or the head of the family decides that okay, in the we may have the first floor being built up, wherein will provide with the two more BHKs. That means two more bedrooms may be there, so that we can accommodate all the number of people. So it is the future expansion that is also kept in mind, and then the plant layout may be accordingly preferred or used. So it is location here that is becoming the sixth important factor. Next comes up is seventh and the last one, that is managerial policies. Now what are these managerial policies? Managerial policies are nothing but they are types of rules and regulations being made by the management. These majorly influences the plant layout because the following are such managerial policies. How it affects: number one, suppose the volume of production and provision of expansion. Suppose you have decided that whatsoever happens, you will not produce more than 3000 units per month, then that is a decision policy on the part of management, right? Or you have made an expansion or provision of expansion that okay, for next 5 years we may not think of something, but after 5 years we want to expand our business to this level. So that becomes the first thing. Next one comes up is the extension of automation. At times automated machines you have 5, and then after expansion you may feel that okay, 2 more machines are to be accommodated. Then that is how the managerial policy affects. Next, making and buying particular components. I gave you this explanation earlier also, that it is a very initial stage, that if a production house decides that 5 components we need, and out of these 5 components 3 components are such which we are going to make it, and 2 are such which we are going to buy it. That means whatever the making decisions are there, that will definitely affect the plant layout. So it depends on the managerial policies. Next, desire for rapid delivery of the goods to the customers. If you want that rapidly the goods should be delivered to the customers, then accordingly the layout is to be designed. Purchasing policy, whether it is on the credit basis, on the cash basis, what type of purchasing policy do you have, then of course that will be also one of the considering point as far as, see, these are the types of policies that may be framed by the management, and that should be kept in mind. The next one comes up is personal policy. It is very natural that many top management policies determine the plant layout objectives and the scope of plant activities. The layout engineer must have clear and complete understanding of those management policies that have a bearing on the plant layout objectives. That means if you want to have the ideal plant layout, then all these points, they may be the policies that may be should be studied before taking the decision of plant layout. This is how 7 different factors we have studied today, that tells us that they are to be studied properly. Here to list out, we have given 7 say factors, but there may be more than the 7 factors, or there may be less also, but there are chances that there are always factors more beyond this 7 factors that we have studied, because the plant layout differs from person to person. That means from say manufacturer to manufacturer, from plant to plant, or maybe from product to product. But overall these are the 7 important factors that we have studied today, right, that has to be decided, or that has to be considered before having the plant layout done by the manufacturer. So here today we end up with the part 3 of facility layout. When we meet next, we shall be checking out with more aspects of facility layout. Till then, take care. Goodbye.